There is a force within you, a master architect of your own prison. It knows the exact anatomy of your fears, the precise melody of your insecurities. It is the one that tightens your throat when you are about to speak your truth, that guides your hand to the quit button at the peak of a project, that whispers the word imposter in your ear after every achievement. You call it self-sabotage, procrastination, anxiety. You treat it as an enemy to be eradicated. But what if I told you that this force is not your enemy? What if this dark entity, this personal demon, is actually the chained guardian of your greatest power? What if all the sabotage it commits is a desperate act to draw your attention to the treasure it protects in the darkness? The raw, brutal truth is that your shadow does not want to destroy you. It wants to be integrated. It wants you to descend into the basement of your soul and reclaim the gold you yourself exiled. For fear of your own brilliance, what we will do together here, today, transcends information. It is a ritual, an initiation. If you feel the call to this journey, if the pain of remaining the same has become greater than the fear of change, then your place is here. Subscribe to this channel to commit not to me, but to your own wholeness. Activate the bell so you don't miss a single step of this expedition. Leave your like as a sign that you are ready to light the first torch in your darkness. And comment the word integration to declare your intention and find other travelers on this same quest. Now, hold on tight. The descent begins. The voice that sabotages you is not random noise. It is a code. It is the manifest symptom of a primordial split in your soul, a constant echo of the civil war you wage against yourself without even realizing it. To understand this force, we must first dissect it. Take it out of the nebulous field of lack of willpower and analyze it with the precision of a surgeon of the psyche. This voice, this sabotaging demon, operates through meticulous and repetitive patterns. Think of your most recurrent failures. Is it always the same type of relationship that you attract and destroy? Is it always at the same stage of a project that you lose your steam? Is it always the same excuse you whisper to yourself? When abandoning a healthy habit, these are not accidents. They are signatures. They are the marks left by your shadow complex, an autonomous part of your psyche that feeds on your energy and operates with a single mission: to maintain the status quo, to prevent you from venturing beyond the safe borders of your conscious identity. Why? Because your ego, the part of you that says I, has built an identity based on what is known and acceptable. Any movement towards the unknown, towards a greater and more potent I, is perceived by this structure as a threat of annihilation. The voice of sabotage, therefore, is not a voice of malice, but of panic. It is the terrified cry of a part of you that fears being left behind, that fears the light because it has always lived in darkness. It prefers the familiarity of its cell to the terrifying vastness of freedom. To begin to disarm it, the first step is not to fight, but to listen with radical curiosity. When it says you are not good enough, instead of believing or fighting, ask, good enough for whom? What is the standard you are using to measure me? And what are you trying to protect me from by keeping me small? This change in posture, from combatant to investigator, is the first act of magic. You stop being the victim of the voice and become its observer. It is in this space of observation that its power begins to dissolve. For the shadow only has absolute power while it operates in the shadows of your unconsciousness. By casting the light of your attention upon it, you begin the process of reclaiming your territory, of mapping the walls of your own prison, which is the essential step before you can find the key to the door. This saboteur is not your final jailer. He is merely the guard who has been hypnotized into believing that the walls exist for your own good. Your mission is to awaken him. To confront our inner demon, we need to understand its origin. The concept of a demon as a force of absolute evil is a relatively recent invention, a powerful tool of social and psychological control. In older traditions, like in ancient Greece, the daemon was neither good nor bad. It was a force of nature, an intermediary spirit, a messenger between the gods and humans. It was the personification of destiny, of vocation, of the soul's calling. Socrates spoke of his daemonion as an inner divine voice that guided him, that prevented him from making mistakes. It was a source of wisdom, not perdition. So what happened? With the rise of monotheistic religions and their need to polarize the universe between an absolute good God and an absolute evil the devil, Everything that was pagan, earthly, instinctive, and chaotic was demonized. Nature, sexuality, ambition, anger, knowledge that challenged dogma, all of this was cast into the same dark box and labeled demonic. This was the great psychological exile of Western humanity. We were taught to fear and repress half of our own nature. In doing so, we did not eliminate these forces, we perverted them. Sexual energy, which is the creative force of life, when repressed, becomes lechery and perversion. Natural aggression, necessary to set boundaries and protect what we love, when repressed, becomes sadistic cruelty or explosive, irrational rage. Ambition, which is the engine for growth and achievement, when repressed, transforms into corrosive envy and insatiable greed. The archetypal demon, psychologically speaking, is the face that this repressed energy takes in the unconscious. It is the sum of all our divine potential that has been labeled as profane. It is our life force distorted by abandonment. When we dream of a demonic figure chasing us, it is often not a warning about an external evil, but a desperate call from our own self, our totality, imploring us to rescue these exiled parts of ourselves. The journey of individuation, the path of becoming who we truly are, is therefore an act of rehabilitation. It is the process of going against centuries of cultural and religious conditioning, of looking at what we were taught to hate and asking, what part of my power resides here? It is understanding that the demon is not the enemy of God, but perhaps his forgotten face, the wild, untamed, and chthonic part of the whole that needs to be honored and integrated for balance to be restored. We tend to think of the shadow as a kind of psychic trash can, a place where we throw our most shameful and undesirable traits. This is a dangerously incomplete view. The shadow is, more accurately, a maximum security vault. And inside it, we don't just store our monsters, but also our greatest treasures. We call this the golden shadow. Imagine a child born with extraordinary artistic talent, but who grows up in a family that only values science and logic. The child's talent is not celebrated. It's seen as a distraction, a waste of time. To win the parents' love and approval, the child learns to repress their gift. They lock it away in the shadow's vault. Years later, they become a successful adult, but feel an inexplicable emptiness, a nostalgia for something they never lived. That is the gold in their vault, crying out to be rediscovered. The same happens with other qualities. In a culture that often teaches women to be docile and pleasing, assertiveness, righteous anger, and powerful ambition are frequently repressed. In an environment that teaches men to be strong and not show vulnerability, sensitivity, intuition, and the capacity to care are exiled to the shadow. The demon, as the guardian of this vault, seems frightening because it protects immense power. Self-sabotage, in this context, can be seen as a distorted defense mechanism. The shadow fears that if you access this raw power, you won't know how to handle it. If the woman who repressed her anger her whole life suddenly accessed it, she might become destructive. If the repressed artist unleashed their creativity, they might want to abandon the safe life they've built. The demon, then, keeps us safe in our mediocrity, protecting us from our own brilliance, which it perceives as dangerous and destabilizing. The key to opening the vault is not brute force. It is trust. It is a gradual process of showing your shadow that you are ready to take responsibility for the power that resides within it. It starts with small acts of courage, expressing an unpopular opinion, dedicating an hour a week to a forgotten passion, allowing yourself to feel a forbidden emotion without judgment. Each time you do this, you earn a little more of the guardian's trust. It begins to realize that you don't want to plunder the treasure, but to integrate it wisely. The journey into the shadow is not just about confronting your demons. It's about rescuing your forgotten gods, the gifts you sacrificed on the altar of social acceptance. The inner demon is a master playwright, and its favorite stage is the outer world. When we refuse to own a trait of our shadow, we don't eliminate it, we project it. Projection is one of the most powerful and deceptive mechanisms of the psyche. It is the act of taking an unacceptable quality, impulse, or feeling in ourselves and unconsciously attributing it to another person or group. This is why the people or behaviors that irritate us the most, that cause us a visceral and disproportionate revulsion, are often perfect mirrors of our own unrecognized shadow material. Think of that person at your work whom you consider unbearably lazy. The intensity of your judgment may be a sign that you have repressed your own need for rest, your own healthy laziness, in the name of a tyrannical work ethic. You project your repressed need onto the other person and attack it out there, because it's easier than confronting the autocracy you've imposed on yourself. The same goes for darker traits. The person who sees betrayal and dishonesty everywhere may be struggling with their own impulses of infidelity or a profound lack of self-honesty. The social justice warrior who aggressively attacks anyone who makes the slightest moral slip may be projecting their own intolerance and sadistic perfectionism, the same cruel voice they use to flagellate themselves internally. The demon delights in this theater. Projection creates a clear external enemy, a scapegoat. It gives us a false sense of moral superiority and distracts us from the uncomfortable work of looking within. It is much easier to fight a monster out there than to admit that the same monster lives in our basement. The problem is that this war is endless and drains our vital energy. As long as we project, we remain victims, reacting to the world instead of creating it. The antidote to projection is radical self-observation. When you feel a strong emotional charge, be it anger, contempt, or exaggerated admiration towards someone, stop. Use it as an alarm. Ask yourself, what part of me is this person reflecting? Where in my own life do I act this way, even on a much smaller scale or in a more subtle way? What does this person have the freedom to express that I deny myself? This act of retrieving the projection is incredibly difficult and humbling. It requires us to abandon the comfortable position of judge and become students of our own hypocrisy. But it is an absolutely essential step. Every projection you retrieve is a piece of your soul that you bring back home. It is one less brick in your prison and one less soldier in your demon's army. Keeping the shadow repressed is not a passive act. It is an active, exhausting, and incessant job that consumes a colossal amount of psychic energy. Imagine that in the basement of your house lives an immensely strong creature. Every day, you have to spend hours holding the door shut so it doesn't escape. You can't relax, you can't get distracted. All your strength, all your focus is dedicated to this single task, containment. What would the rest of your life be like? You would be perpetually tired, irritable, unable to concentrate on anything else. Your house, your life, would be in disarray because all your energy is being spent on a single door. This is the exact metaphor for the repression of the shadow. Apathy, lethargy, chronic depression, the feeling of being drained for no apparent reason often. These are not problems in themselves, but symptoms of the energetic cost of repression. You are being sucked dry by a psychic vampire that you yourself created. This vampire is the shadow complex. When a set of emotions, memories, and impulses is repressed for long enough, it doesn't disappear. It organizes itself. It begins to develop a kind of rudimentary consciousness, its own gravitational center. It becomes an autonomous complex. It acts like a secondary personality in your unconscious, with its own desires and goals which are usually the opposite of your ego's goals. It is this complex that orchestrates acts of self-sabotage. It is what causes Freudian slips, where you say something you didn't mean to say. It is what impels you to eat the whole box of sweets when your conscious mind wants to diet. It feeds on the energy you use to try to control it. The more you fight against it, the stronger it becomes. It's a cruel paradox. The only way to stop feeding the vampire is to stop fighting it. The integration of the shadow is, in essence, an act of energy conservation. By going down to the basement and starting a dialogue with the creature, you stop spending energy holding the door. You begin to understand what the creature wants, what it needs. Maybe it doesn't want to destroy the house. Maybe it just wants a little light, a little recognition. By integrating the energy contained in the shadow, you not only eliminate the energy drain, but you also gain access to that same energy. Repressed anger, which was consuming your vitality, can be transformed into passion and determination. Repressed fear can become prudence and intuition. You don't kill the vampire, you turn it into your most powerful ally. The sense of vitality and presence that people feel after deep psychological work comes directly from this. The energy that was once used for internal civil war is now available for living life. Once we understand the nature of the demon and the cost of repressing it, the question becomes practical. How do we initiate contact? Fighting is useless. Ignoring it is impossible. Jung's answer is one of the most powerful and profound techniques in psychology: active imagination. This is not passive fantasy or daydreaming. It is a disciplined method for creating a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. It is an act of summoning. You consciously enter a meditative state and invite the figures of your unconscious, especially those representing your shadow, into a dialogue. The process is concrete. You start with a fragment of the unconscious, the image from a recurring dream, a persistent mood, a physical pain without a medical cause, or the personification of a feeling like my anxiety. You focus on this fragment and allow it to take a visual form in your mind. Give it a landscape, a voice, an appearance. It is crucial that you do not direct the narrative. You don't invent what the figure will say or do. You observe and interact as if you were talking to a real person. You might ask your personified anxiety, "Who are you? What do you want from me? Why do you appear at these moments?" And then you listen. The answer may come in words, in images, in sensations. Your job is to record all of this without judgment, whether by writing, painting, or sculpting. This is the theater of the soul. At first, the shadow figures may be hostile, monstrous, frightening. They reflect your own fear and rejection of them. Your demon may appear as a terrible and threatening creature. Your task, however difficult, is to stay in the conversation. Do not run away. Do not attack it. Treat it with respect, like a dignitary from a foreign land. Ask about its origin, about its pain. What you will discover is that behind the monstrous facade, there's almost always a wounded figure, an exiled part of you that carries immense pain. By offering your attention and compassion to this figure, the alchemical transformation begins. The monster starts to change its form. The energy that was trapped in a destructive form begins to be released. Active imagination is dangerous if done without preparation, as it deals with potent psychic energies. But it is also the most direct tool for healing the inner split. It is the process of building a relationship with the deepest parts of yourself. It is learning the language of symbols, the native tongue of the soul. Through this dialogue, you stop being haunted by your demon and start learning from it. It ceases to be your jailer and slowly reveals itself as your most unexpected and wise guide to the treasures hidden in your own abyss. Every flaw that resides in the shadow is a potential virtue that has been distorted, exaggerated, or misapplied. The work of the soul's alchemist is not to eliminate the lead of your flaws, but to transmute it into the gold of your greatest strengths. This process, called individuation, is the art of extracting power from your own poison. Let's analyze concrete examples of this alchemy. Consider anger. In the shadow, it manifests as blind fury, chronic irritability, cruelty, or passive aggression. It is a destructive force. However, the energetic core of anger is the power to create boundaries, to say no, to protect what is sacred, and to fight for justice. When integrated, the energy of anger does not disappear. It is refined. It transforms into assertiveness, into focused passion, into the courage to defend your values. The person who integrates their anger is not someone who never gets angry, but someone whose anger is a precise and conscious tool, not an uncontrolled explosion. Think of laziness. In the shadow, it is procrastination, apathy, the inertia that sabotages your goals. But the hidden message in laziness can be a deep need for rest, for introspection, or a sign that you are on a path that is not authentically yours. The energy of laziness, when honored and integrated, transforms into efficiency, the ability to find the path of least resistance, and a deep attunement to one's own energy rhythms, knowing when to act and when to retreat. The integrated lazy person is not a workaholic. They are a master of energy economy and manipulation in the shadow. It is a despicable trait used to control others in a deceitful way. But the core skill of the manipulator is a sharp perception of human psychology, of the needs and fears of others. When this skill is taken out of the shadow and placed in the service of an ethical purpose, it transforms into charismatic leadership, persuasive power, social intelligence, and the ability to inspire and motivate people for a greater good. The skilled politician, the effective therapist, the great salesperson all use the refined energy of manipulation. The process of extracting the gold requires brutal honesty. You have to admit to yourself, Yes, I have the capacity to be cruel. Yes, I have the capacity to be manipulative. Instead of being ashamed of it, you must ask, what is the positive function of this energy? How can I use it consciously and constructively? It's like learning to handle a sword. In the hand of a bandit, it is a weapon of terror. In the hand of a samurai, it is an instrument of precision and justice. The sword is the same. What changes is the consciousness and intention of the one who wields it. Your inner demon is offering you armor and a sword of unimaginable power. The question is whether you will have the courage to claim them and the wisdom to use them. The struggle with the inner demon is not just a personal journey. It is the archetypal story of humanity, told and retold infinitely in our myths, religions, and art. By examining these stories, we can see a mirror of our own collective psyche and understand that our battle is not unique, but universal. The legend of Faust, immortalized by Goethe, is perhaps the most profound representation of the pact with the shadow. Faust is a scholar who, feeling empty and dissatisfied with purely intellectual knowledge, the ego, makes a pact with Mephistopheles the demon in exchange for power, youth, and worldly experience. Mephistopheles is not an external demon. He is the personification of everything Faust has repressed: his desire, his ambition, his will to power, his connection to the earth and the body. The pact is the conscious act of opening oneself to the shadow to become whole. Faust's journey is dangerous. He causes pain and destruction. But in the end, in Goethe's version, he is redeemed. Why? Because he dared to live fully, to integrate his opposites, and to engage with the totality of human experience, instead of remaining in a sterile purity. The Star Wars saga gives us a more modern and equally potent model. Anakin Skywalker does not become Darth Vader because he was evil. He falls to the dark side out of fear of losing those he loves. He represses his fear and his pain, trying to control them, and this repression makes him vulnerable to manipulation. Darth Vader is the personification of Anakin's shadow, a black armor that contains all of his repressed pain, anger, and power. His redemption at the end does not happen because he destroys Vader. It happens when he integrates Vader. It is the power and cruelty of Vader, now guided by Anakin's love for his son, that allows him to destroy the Emperor. He unites the shadow and the ego in a final act of sacrifice, becoming whole. The story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a cautionary tale about what happens when the shadow is not integrated, but completely dissociated. Dr. Jekyll tries to create a potion to get rid of his evil tendencies, but instead, he only gives them an autonomous form. Mr. Hyde is the shadow without the moderation of the ego. The result is mutual destruction. These stories teach us crucial lessons. First, that the shadow contains immense and necessary power. Second, that the attempt to destroy or dissociate it leads to disaster. Third, that integration, though dangerous, is the only path to redemption and wholeness. Your personal demon is playing out one of these scripts in your life right now. Are you making a pact like Faust? Are you repressing your fear like Anakin? Or are you trying to get rid of a part of yourself like Jekyll? Our myths are not just entertainment. They are instruction manuals for the soul. Western culture is obsessed with the idea of perfection. We are taught to seek the light, to eliminate negativity, to always be happy, positive, and virtuous. This incessant pursuit of perfection is, in fact, a recipe for neurosis. It is a violent denial of the reality of human nature, which is inherently dual. Jungian psychology offers us a much healthier and more achievable ideal: wholeness. To be whole is not to be perfect. It is to be complete. It is to be able to contain opposites within yourself without falling apart. It is to be aware of both your light and your darkness, your capacity for love and your capacity for hatred, your strength and your fragility. The Taoist symbol of yin and yang illustrates this perfectly. It is not an image of a battle between black and white. It is an image of a dance. Each side contains the seed of the other, and together they form a complete and dynamic circle. The integration of the shadow is the process of learning this dance. It's not about letting your demon take control. That would be falling into darkness. It's also not about killing it. That would be remaining in a sterile and one-sided light. It's about building a relationship between your ego, the center of your consciousness, and your shadow, the center of your unconscious. The ego needs to learn humility. It needs to recognize that it is not the master of the entire psychic house, but merely the manager of the living room. It needs to learn to listen to the wisdom that comes from the basement. The shadow, in turn, needs to be civilized. The raw, chaotic energy that resides in it needs to be refined and directed by consciousness. It's like taming a wild horse. You don't break the horse's spirit, you create a partnership with it. You unite your consciousness and direction with its strength and vitality. Together, you can go much further than either of you could go alone. In practice, this means a radical shift in self-acceptance. It means admitting to yourself, "Today, I was envious." Instead of punishing yourself, you can ask, "What is this envy telling me about what I truly desire?" It means recognizing, "I felt an impulsive cruelty." Instead of horror, the question is, where in my life do I need more assertiveness and boundaries? Living an integrated life is tiring in a different way. It requires constant vigilance and brutal honesty with oneself. There's no longer the easy comfort of seeing yourself as a good person. You recognize yourself as a complete human being, capable of the best and the worst. But the reward is authenticity. You stop wasting energy pretending to be what you are not. You become solid, real. And it is from this solidity that true strength and true inner peace can finally emerge. We have reached the heart of the journey. The turmoil, the anxiety, the depression, the sense of meaninglessness that haunt you are not, in their essence, pathologies to be medicated into silence. They are symptoms of a much deeper condition. They are the call of the self. The self, in Jungian psychology, is the central archetype, the ordering principle of the psyche. It is your totality, the image of God within you. It encompasses both the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow. The ego, your consciousness of I, is just a small planet orbiting this central sun, the self. The ultimate goal of life, the great work opus magnum of alchemy, is the process of individuation, the process of becoming an indivisible individual, of fully realizing the unique potential of yourself. And the self cannot be realized through light alone. It requires the integration of the shadow. Therefore, the demon that torments you, that sabotages your life, is ultimately a messenger of the self. It is the self wearing a scary mask to force you to look at the parts of yourself that you have abandoned. Sabotage is an act of severe mercy. It is the self saying, "This path you are on, this small, one-sided life you have built, is a dead end. It is a betrayal of your true potential. I will burn this false life to the ground, if necessary, to force you to seek the true one." This is why it is often a crisis, a divorce, the loss of a job, an illness that initiates the true spiritual journey. It is the demon breaking down the walls of our prison so that the self can call us home. You are not cursed. You are incomplete. The pain you feel is the pain of growth, the pain of a soul trying to become whole. The confrontation with the demon is the rite of passage. By descending into your personal abyss to confront your deepest fears, you are not moving away from the divine. You are following the exact path to find it. Because the divine is not only in the heavens of your superconsciousness, it is also in the depths of the earth of your unconscious. The journey of individuation is about unifying heaven and earth within your own soul. It is a lonely and often terrifying path. It requires you to question everything you believed about yourself and the world, but it is the only journey that has heart. It is the path back home, to your true center, the self. The demon, your apparent adversary, reveals itself in the end as your most loyal guide, the guardian of the threshold who is only testing your courage before allowing you to enter your own kingdom. The final question it asks you right now, in this silence, is, are you ready to claim your throne?